Takashi Nanis is a normal boy going to school with his girlfriend, Kurumi Isershima. At school, he sees an unconscious girl and he takes her to the infirmary. When the girl awakens, they mistakenly kiss and she shoots Takashi with a gun thinking he's a pervert. She then apologizes and introduces herself as Mui Eba. Mui's brother and his companions then barge in and try to take Yui. Takashi fights one of the enemies, a guy named Oegama, and discovers that he now has magic. They then jump out the window and run away. Takeshi's friend Kazumi sees them being chased and one of the enemies, a girl named Hotaru, stops to fight him. Mui explains to Takashi that she mistakenly made him a magician after attacking him with her gun earlier. She also explains that her brother had his memories rewritten by the Ghost Trailers, a group of magicians who don't want to hide from humanity anymore. Kurumi sees Takashi with Mui and confronts him for being with another girl. However, their pursuers also catch up to them and a fight ensues. Kurumi gets hit by magic and also becomes a magician. Meanwhile, an enemy collapses when he attacks Mui. It turns out that you cannot attack a magician in the living world with ancestral magic, or else you will lose your powers. Kazumi also arrives carrying Hotaru, who also turned him into a magician by attacking him. Takeshi fights Wagami, and with Mui's help, he defeats him. Mui brings them to her school, Subaru Magic Academy. The school headmistress, Shiju Momoka, tells them the history of their society. In the past, there was a great magic war. Ghost Trailer's leader, Ryusenji Kazuma, attempted to kill humanity, but 15 great magicians opposed him and split the world into two, the ruined world and the living world. Kazuma's spell only destroyed the ruined world, and the living world was left unscathed. The magicians then created a pact that the war will only occur in the ruined world. To ensure this pact, a magician called the Wise Man casts the gift, which removes the powers of any magician who uses ancestral magic against another magician in the living world. Headmistress Shiju offers them a choice. Will they attend the school or surrender their magic and return to their old lives? After some consideration, the three decide to continue as students at Subaru Magic Academy. In class, they learn that there are tools called aspects that magicians use to focus their magic. Kurumi has a flash drive as hers, while Kazumi uses a ring. Takashi doesn't have one, so the teacher sends him to the shop. Mui accompanies him, and they find a sword for him. The sword, Twilight, is the old weapon of one of the 15 great magicians, with a magic circle inscribed on it. When Takashi pours his magic on the sword activates and changes into a gunsword, letting him load a bullet with other people's magic. The three new students start practicing their magic, Takashi with his sword, Kazumi with his fire, and Kurumi with her transformations. At gym class, Mui gives Kurumi an extra ticket for a fortune teller. After class, some students walk by and call Mu the traitor's sister. Feeling hurt, Mui runs away. Hituji-sensei, a teacher, explains to them that their group, Wizard Braces, are the ones most opposed to Ghost Trailers, which Mu's brother defected to. During class, Takeshi confiscates Kurumi's pictures that the guys took and warns them he's her boyfriend. Mui overhears his declaration. Meanwhile, Kurumi goes to the fortune teller, who warns her that she and her boyfriend will have problems ahead. Kurumi leaves the fortune teller and bumps into Mui, who apologizes for kissing Takeshi the day they met. Kurumi gets jealous and attempts to kiss Takeshi, but he stops her. Instead, he asks if they can stop pretending that they're dating. A few days later, a student tries to confess to Kurumi, but she freaks out when he touches her. Takeshi then arrives and scares away the guy. In the past, Kurumi's beauty caused her to have problems with a stalker, so Takeshi pretended to date her so guys would leave her alone. This caused a rift between him and his brother Geku, however, who thought he was using Kurumi's vulnerability. Geku was then hit by a car and blamed Takeshi ever since. Takeshi then makes up with Kurumi and tells her that he will protect her. Kurumi notices the photos Takeshi took from the other students and gives him one as his boyfriend. After learning her brother's location from the fortune teller, Mui heads out to the ruined world to find him. When the others find out, they ask their Hituji-sensei to let them follow her. He, however, doesn't allow it since there is currently a war in the ruined world. Takeshi disregards his warnings and decides to sneak out. Kazumi follows him while Kurumi, after some hesitation, also accompanies him. In the ruined world, they find Mui defeated by his brother. Takeshi immediately fights her brother, Subanashi, but he proved too strong for him to handle alone. Kazumi saves him from being imprisoned in ice since Kazumi thinks he owes Takeshi for saving her sister from bullies in the past. Kurumi successfully heals Mui, and together they deflect Subanashi's attacks. They bought enough time for Takeshi to use a bullet containing Kazumi's fire powers and knocks Subanashi unconscious. Before they can capture him, however, Washizu, a ghost trailer, suddenly arrives and takes him away. Back at school, Headmistress Shiju scolds them for disobeying school rules and makes them promise to never leave school again. Takeshi, however, doesn't want to make the promise because Mui still hasn't given up on her brother. Elsewhere, Washizu and Vi, another ghost trailer, are talking about their botched plan to capture Mui, but Washizu points out that Vi has more chances to capture her. After all, she was the fortune teller at the school and an undercover faculty member as Violet Sensei. The school is conducting a school-wide magic exam in a magical tower, and Headmistress Shiju promises to help Mui rescue her brother if they all pass. In Takeshi's exam, he has to go through a town full of enemies. If ever he gets injured, he will be teleported to the infirmary. Inside the town, Takeshi shockingly bumps Oigami, the ghost trailer he fought before. He confronts Oigami, but he doesn't seem to remember him. In the air, Hituji-sensei and Headmistress Shiju are watching. It turns out that they deleted Oigami's memories for him to change sides. Outside the building, Vi plans to disrupt the exam. The town suddenly deteriorates and Takeshi falls to the exam underneath. Kurumi worriedly looks at the deteriorating exam when a golem abruptly attacks her. Fortunately, Oigami saves him after falling from above. Oigami then slowly disappears due to his injuries. Kurumi rendezvous with Takeshi, Kazumi, and Mui, and they continue to their exam goals. They encounter another golem, but they defeat it using another one of Takeshi's Kazumi-filled bullets. A few days later, Takeshi and Mui are sparring when Mui suddenly faints. He brings her to her dorm and puts her to bed. Mui, however, seems to be dreaming and starts cuddling with Takeshi. Kurumi walks in and sees Takeshi and angrily kicks him out of the room. Mui awakens and Kurumi also kicks her out. Kurumi starts crying, so Mui runs to call Takeshi back. Meanwhile, Mui finds Takeshi, but he doesn't want to console Kurumi anymore. He then tells Mui that they were just faking being together because of Kurumi's past. A few days later, Kurumi bumps into Oigami, who kindly wipes away her tears. As promised, Headmistress Shiju brings Takeshi's group to a meeting between the Wizard Braces and Ghost Trailers. They meet with Washizu's group at the ruined world and proceed to exchange prisoners. They receive Suganashi, while they return Oigami and Hotaru. Kurumi thanks Oigami for saving him, and Oigami hands her a magic device. Afterward, Headmistress Shiju leaves with Washizu to fight, leaving Suganashi to Takeshi's group. Suganashi tries to fight and run away, but Takeshi and the others chase him. Elsewhere, Shiju and Washizu start fighting, and after a long-fought battle, Shiju creates a black hole, sucking everything in sight, including Washizu. However, Shiju is too injured and tired and falls to the river below. Meanwhile, Takeshi's group follows Suganashi to an ice building. The traps inside hamper Takeshi and the others' progress, forcing Mui to confront Suganashi alone. Mui is about to be defeated when Takeshi and Kazumi finally catch up and save her. With the three of them working together, they finally defeat Suganashi. A few days later, Headmistress Shiju is resting from her injuries while Mui is sleeping in the infirmary next to her brother's bed. When she wakes up, her brother finally recognizes her and she hugs him. Elsewhere, the ghost trailers are having a meeting about their new recruits. Washizu arrives and kills the other recruits and states that his recruit will be the new member. Takeshi helplessly watches as Kurumi is abducted by a large monster. Thankfully, he abruptly wakes up from the nightmare. That morning, we use him chocolate for Valentine's Day. Kurumi also gives him some chocolates, but it just reminds him of the dream he had of her. That night, Takeshi dreams again, but this time it's about Mui eating a pudding. The next day, he learns that Mui actually slipped in her dorm rushing to eat pudding. This reminds Takeshi of his dream, but before he can investigate, he faints. While sleeping in the infirmary, he dreams about Washizu. The nurse, Hyuta-sensei, sees a strange girl standing over the sleeping Takeshi and goes to wake him up. She tells Takeshi that his dreams are caused by twilight. It's a type of magic that allows him to dream about the future but sucks out his power. Twilight then uses his power to manifest in human form. Hyuta-sensei warns him not to sleep next to Twilight, but Takeshi ignores her warnings. Headmistress Shiju also tells him to stop, but Takeshi exclaims that he wants to know the future. Headmistress Shiju then informs Takeshi that to fully own Twilight, he has to defeat her in his dreams. Mui volunteers to help him, so under the watch of Headmistress Shiju, they enter his dreams. He meets his brother Geku, who suddenly attacks him with magic. Takeshi protects Mui from Geku, and Geku slowly morphs into a girl. Takeshi fights with her, but the girl is too powerful. Takeshi then realizes that he never acknowledged Twilight, so she names the girl Eterna. Eterna accepts her name and vanishes in a flash of light. 1 month later, Takeshi gives Kurumi a gift in exchange for the chocolates he received last Valentine's. He is now truly Twilight's owner. Takeshi and Kurumi are welcoming the new students for the new year. Kazuma introduces them to his little sister, Futabi, a new student. Then out of nowhere, Takashi's brother, Geku, arrives and tells them he's now a magician. A few days later, Takeshi meets Geku again at the bath, and Geku proposes they bury the hatchet and start anew. The next day, Takeshi bumps into Hituji-sensei, who mysteriously asks him to be a role model for his little brother. That night, Takeshi dreams of his brother still angry at him and shouting that he'll never forgive him. He wakes up to find Washizu inside his room. Takeshi immediately draws his sword, but Washizu only wants to talk. Washizu then tells him the history of Wizard Brace. In the past, Wizard Brace only wants themselves to use magic and persecutes other magicians. Kazuma, the future leader of the Ghost Trailers, was blackmailed by Wizard Brace to join them, but he didn't want to so his parents were killed. Kazuma waged war against them, but when he tried to kill the past owner of Twilight, Nanis Yuko, who was also Takeshi's mother, Kazuma's friend Tsukiyomi sacrificed himself to save her. Washizu is telling this story to convince Takeshi to join their side. The next day, Takeshi talks to Headmistress Shiju to ask her if the story is true. Shiju admits that it is, and Takeshi runs away in anger. Kazuma, the leader of Ghost Trailers, finally awakens amidst his followers. With his awakening, he declares the continuation of the war. Takeshi is in class when the school abruptly gets attacked by a dragon outside the window. Ghost Trailers magicians suddenly everywhere appear attacking everyone. Kazumi faints after getting hit by fallen debris, while Mui is with her brother battling hordes of magicians. Headmistress Shiju is confronted by 3 powerful magicians, but through ingenuity, she defeats them. However, Violet Sensei suddenly shows her true colors and summons a dragon to attack Shiju, knocking her unconscious. Takeshi and Kurumi are looking for Geku, but when they find him, Geku reveals that he is a member of Ghost Trailers. He admits that his master is Washizu, and he only became a magician to hurt Takeshi. Takeshi and Geku start fighting, but Geku's magic proved to be stronger, allowing him to stab and knock Takeshi out. Kurumi kisses the unconscious Takeshi and mysteriously transforms herself into Takeshi. Geku then kidnaps Kurumi, takes Tutelate, and leaves Takeshi to die. While unconscious, Takeshi is shown a vision by Eterna of Geku killing their mom. Eterna then cries out for him to look for her. Back in school, Mu just found Takeshi unconscious with Violet standing over him. Violet tries to abduct Takeshi, but Mu fights her. Another magician, Kisaki Ina, a girl from another group named Camelot, and her brother's ex-girlfriend arrives, and with her help, they force Violet to retreat. They volunteer to bring Takeshi to Camelot where he can get treatment. Meanwhile, Mui notices a magic item Kurumi left behind. Takeshi wakes up in the hospital in Camelot. Mui is elated by his recovery. Sukanashi and Kisaki arrive and inform Takeshi that Headmistress Shiju is missing. Takeshi tells them that he needs to rescue Kurumi, but everyone stops him because he's still injured. Elsewhere, the Ghost Trailers plan to escalate the war. Washizu kills the wise magician, removing the gift, which prevents them from battling in the living world. With it gone, magicians immediately bring the war to cities around the world. Takeshi remembers Eterna's vision of Geku killing their mother, so he goes to her with Kisaki. Kisaki asks her mother to get out of retirement to train Takeshi, and she accepts. For the next few days, Takeshi's mother brutally trains Takeshi. One afternoon, Mui hands Takeshi the magic device Kurumi left for him and tells him that it's a teleportation device to reach Ghost Trailer's base. She apologizes for not giving it to him since she's just concerned Takeshi might do something rash without an aspect. Elsewhere, Kurumi wakes up in the Ghost Trailer's base and is shocked to see that her appearance is Takeshi's. Geku then appears and asks Kurumi to revert to her original form. Geku tries to flirt with her, but Kurumi fights back and flees from the room. She bumps into Oigami and begs him to save her. Oigami hides her in his room, but Hotaru discovers them. Fortunately, Hotaru also hates Geku, since he took their spot as Washizu's favorite, so they help her escape. They try to escape the castle, but they bump into Geku looking for Kurumi. The girls hide while Oigami distracts him. However, Geku is about to find them, so Hotaru kisses Kurumi, activating her transformation. Oigami and the disguised Kurumi then continue their escape. Unfortunately, they bump into Washizu, so Oigami walks away with him, leaving Kurumi alone. Kurumi tries to find her way, but she loses her transformation. She enters a tower and finds herself with the leader of the Ghost Trailers himself, Kazuma. Meanwhile, Takeshi and her mother are training, but her mother collapses for using her ring too much. The ring allows her to use her magic even if she's retired, but it consumes her life force. Since he can't train anymore, Takeshi decides it's time to rescue Kurumi. Mui and Kazumi, of course, won't let him go alone and come with him. They activate the teleportation device Kurumi left them and find themselves in the Ghost Trailer's hideout. They quickly encounter Oigami and Hotaru, and a fierce fight ensues. Kazumi defeats Hotaru while a combined Takeshi-Mui teamwork defeats Oigami. They ask the two where Kurumi is, and Oigami tells them that they tried to help her, but now she's gone. Takeshi runs home to the only clue he has left, the vision he had of Geku killing their mom. In front of the house, he sees Keigu wielding Twilight, covered in blood. Keigu then tells her that he already killed their mom, but it was in self-defense. Their mom ordered him to be killed in the past when he was hit by a car since she believed he would turn into Kazuma. Gekko then summons Eterna, now covered in chains, and orders her to attack Takeshi. Takeshi fights back, and a fierce battle takes place. In the middle of their battle, the two groups arrive, Ghost Trailers versus Wizard Brace. Everyone starts fighting with Gekko and Takeshi right in the middle of them. Gekko then pretends to be remorseful, prompting Takeshi to lower his guard and help him. Kurumi tries to warn Gekko, but Gekko instantly attacks. Kurumi shields Takeshi with his body and gets grievously injured. Takeshi leaves her in the care of Mui and angrily attacks Gekko. Kurumi tries to tell Takeshi something she learned from Kazuma, but she is too weak. In the distance, Headmistress Shiju fires a black hole at the warring communities and wipes Takeshi and Gekko off the face of the earth. At home, Kazuma heals Takeshi's mom. He then exits and pulls out a picture of Kurumi from his pocket, the very same picture Kurumi gave to his boyfriend Takeshi. He gives one last look at his mom and leaves with Violet. Meanwhile, Takeshi wakes up to find himself at school. Surprisingly, the school is undamaged. He then sees his mother with Hituji-sensei. He sits down in confusion and sees a poster labeled 1988. It turns out he had traveled in the past. He also sees Shiju with Washizu, and both are still students. They call their other friends Tsukiyomi and Kazuma. And as one last shock, Gekko joins them. The friends walk away, but Gekko looks back and smirks at Kazuma.